Welcome to the fourth episode in a 78 video series on the cards of the tarot. If you've been here before and want to skip the intro, I will place a timestamp down below in the description box that'll take you straight to the tarot overview. Otherwise, as a reminder, this is not meant to be a deep dive into the origins of tarot, but more like a primer for those starting out, or for those who may be struggling to connect with the deck they felt called to. Each reader has their own style of reading and method of interpretation, and above all, this is just a simple overview of mine that I'd like to share. Using the 12 decks I currently own, we will go through each card of the major and minor arcana, looking at the differences between the decks and talking about how both artist rendition and reader interpretation of the card can alter the meaning. I will also be sharing a few of my personal interpretations along the way. I will not be talking about the messages for reversals, meaning when the card jumps out or is pulled out upside down. However, I have provided in the description box below a link to biddytarot.com, which offers an excellent breakdown of why you should and shouldn't read reversals. Check it out. I'm not sponsored, just a fan. For fun, I've thrown in a bonus card from the Spirit Halloween Store novelty deck. I feel that these novelty decks can have value in a reading, and if you haven't already done so, check out my card flip through of the Arcane Bullshit Tarot deck. It is definitely novel and surprisingly well constructed. Consider this your warning for sexually explicit material and occasional foul or coarse language. I currently use two not safe for work decks. Deck 1 is the Tarot of Sexual Magic, and it's considered softcore, meaning lingerie and romanticized pictures of lovemaking. And it is lovemaking. Deck 2, Eros Tarot, however, is considered hardcore. Example, the warning on the box that says contains nudity and graphic sexual imagery. While this series is intended as a basic overview of tarot, which in and of itself is not sexual in nature, these two decks very much are. If you are uncomfortable with sexually explicit nudity and graphic images of sexual acts, then perhaps this series is not for you. This series is also not geared nor meant for those under 18. These are the decks I will be featuring in this video. They will also be listed down below in the description box, along with any links if they were purchased from Etsy or Kickstarter. Otherwise, you can be free to assume that they were purchased on Amazon or from my local mom and pop witch shop. The descriptions of the cards in this series are based on the imagery of the original Rider-Waite-Smith decks. I consider those decks to be the Rosetta Stone of tarot, and the images are widely used around the world today. You may also see a variety of name combinations such as Rider-Waite, Waite-Smith, etc. And no, in case you're wondering, you absolutely do not need to memorize each card for the deck you own. Each practitioner has their own style. What works for you, and that's okay. Just know that the more you use your cards, the more fluent in their language you will become. So here we are, the Empress card, number 3, Roman numeral 3 of the tarot. And I have a confession to make. I often get the Empress confused with the High Priestess whenever I am using the Golden Art Nouveau deck, mainly because I don't pay attention to the Roman numerals because I know fuck all about Roman numerals, and there are no titles to tell me who it is in the thing. And yes, I know looking at it now, it's obvious, but like when you're in the middle of a reading, it takes me a moment to sit there and think about which is which. These cards to me also have a very similar energy, and I don't feel as if one outranks the other. More like they are both at the top of their chosen fields, which are equal in importance. The High Priestess is the spiritual side of things, and the Empress is more focused on the earthly concerns. It is a very much as above, so below type feeling. Even the booklet for the Golden Art Nouveau deck says that the Empress is the embodiment of nature herself. Keywords associated with her are nurturing and bountiful and abundance. In a lot of depictions, she's obviously pregnant, but that's not always the case, as we see in the Radiant Rider-Waite deck. Is she pregnant? Maybe, but it's not. There's no bump that we can definitively put a finger on. Her crown of stars also symbolizes feminine intuition, and we will see that off and on as we go through the rest of the decks. The Easy Tarot Handbook tells us that the Empress represents growth and prosperity and fertility and brings about fruition, which basically means the moment a plan or project is realized. This card is usually a very positive sign about relationships or careers in general. Can she mean someone is pregnant? Yes, of course. But typically, it's a more metaphorical meaning. The Everyday Witch Tarot defines the Empress as the personification of growth and possibility. Even the imagery shows us that this Empress is in full bloom, much like the orchard around her. The scepter she is holding is said to represent the blood of life, and I'm like, okay, Jan. But the apples, I'm focused on the apples in this orchard behind her. Apples are often associated with the goddess Aphrodite, who, as you may or may not know, is the goddess of love and beauty. And they represent health and future happiness. I mean, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, right? This card gives me major Aphrodite vibes, complete with the long flowing blonde hair. Stick her in a clamshell half and throw her on top of the ocean, and you wouldn't be very far off to the image of Aphrodite or Venus. This deck is the only one I currently have that also specifically mentions in the book that this is also representative of the full circle of life, to include death. And again, I look at the apples, because if they're not plucked or taken care of, they will wither and die on the tree. Oh, fuck, no, I'm sad about apples. But this looks like a very well-tended orchard, and the Empress knows what she is doing. Nothing will lack for care while she is on watch, because she is the ultimate symbol of motherhood. And she is obviously pregnant. She's cradling her bump, and she's just giving that I'm going to take care of you vibe. However, the Tarot of Sexual Magic says that this card is about invitation, and the Empress is definitely serving some come hither vibes. She is going to make all of your wildest dreams come true. Now, there are multiple snakes in the background. We have a small one right here on the statue, and then a larger one right here behind her. And that gives me very much Adam and Eve Garden of Eden type deal, where the forbidden knowledge. It looks like she's looking at you like, come here, good sir, and partake of my apple tree. The apple tree meant her vagina. There's also a shield with two doves, which I assume mean peace, and the big shell, which I feel, again, is a throwback to Aphrodite. If the Everyday Tarot card is about motherhood, then this card practically screams mommy and safe words, which is why I only use this deck when doing love and sex reading. Speaking of safe words, once again, the Eros Tarot throws everything out the window in terms of what came before. I am a bit disappointed in this card. There is nothing welcoming or nurturing in her face. This is a very you are subservient and you will take what is given and be thankful kind of feeling to me. If the previous cards were mother and mommy, then she is thank you ma'am, may I have another. She is straight up doming you. With this card, just looking out of the context of any reading, I feel that there was an offering given and it came up short. I feel that you have very much a matriarch and a power vibe from this woman. This is a woman in full control of her power, where the High Priestess of the Eros Tarot was a consensual exchange of power. She's not giving up shit. You have to earn that shit, and it is not easy. She is confident in her own skin and an ability to handle whatever comes her way. She can give with one hand and take away with the other. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Once again, a complete 180 to the Jane Austen tarot deck, not to be confused with the Tarot of Jane Austen, which is still heartbreakingly out of print and out of my life. Now, this particular deck is not a traditional tarot deck in that it only has 53 cards instead of the regular 78. And the booklet for this deck says that this card is one about enthusiasm. And I'm like, she does not look enthusiastic to me. Unless you know who the picture on this card is. Jane Austen fans will know that Marianne Dashwood loved love, loved the idea of being in love, and loved all things romantic and passionate. Example, she was quoted as saying, "If I could but know his heart, everything would become so easy." She was heartily enthusiastic about love until her heart was broken. She walked out in the rain, caught a cold, nearly died, and then was reborn to love Alan Rickman in a deep and quiet, abiding way. So basically, you would have to consult the book for almost every card in this deck. The descriptions are typically one word like enthusiasm or willingness, and then it gives you a little bit of backstory about the Jane Austen novel it was taken from. It's not intuitive. I mean, it's not. And I use this card in conjunction with several other decks, especially if I were looking for clarification of something or perhaps asking a yes or no question, because this card typically means yes. And if this card is intuitively hard to parse, then let me introduce you to the Crow Empress. The booklet tells me that this crow is fertile. Okay, I'm gonna have to take your word for it. And then we see the forest and the apples, so fertility and abundance is definitely there. And of course, Mother Nature is represented in the landscape. The Crow Empress is soaring over the bountiful landscape, and the wand is there, right here, to represent what is important to the core of your being. Spoiler alert, it's nature. To me, this card has major get your ass outside and hug a fucking tree vibe. The querent, the person asking the question during a reading, may need to establish that connection to Mother Nature again, to nourish themselves. The book even says that this is a sign to take time and pamper yourself and revel in your feminine energy. And yes, dudes can have feminine energy too, and vice versa. Energy is energy, man. Just fucking feel it. But do you get that when you look at the card? It takes you a while. It takes you a while to remember the symbolism. I was going to say symbiote, and this is totally not fucking, yeah, not a symbiote. But it takes you a moment to look at that, and I don't think it's as intuitive as the other cards. But again, the more you use your deck, the more familiar you'll be. Now, switching channels again, we have the Lover's Path Tarot, and instead of the Empress, we have fertility. Once again, this deck breaks down the card to its most basic meaning. This card features Caesar and Cleopatra. She is obviously pregnant and cradling her stomach. The meaning that sticks out to me most from this book is practical action that manifests as a physical product. Whereas the other cards were about mothering, this one has a definite feel of the act of creation, whether it's business endeavors, artistic endeavors, etc. This card meaning can morph into different ones depending on the question asked, but new relationships and new partnerships may result in some fantastic and long-hoped for growth is the main one that sticks out to me. Last but not least, as usual, we have the Urban Tarot Empress. And look, this card is great because we actually see a baby in this one, but the face of the baby just fucking sends me. Look at that baby. He looks like he's one mouthful away from spitting up all over the place. The Empress is a mother, complete with sleep-deprived eyes and that new mom smile, and the softness that can easily transform into a more protective rage of a mother bear if her loved ones are threatened. And okay, the book has a pretty nice description of the child looking at its mom like she's the center of its universe, because she is. And I kind of feel like an ass for roasting the baby, but to be fair, there have been times where I've wanted to vomit from all the emotion I was feeling, both good and bad, so I can relate. Anyway, she is the mother, but she's also mom. The stars are back and to me represent a mother's intuition, which I feel is a slight variance on feminine intuition. So that's it for today, kids. As usual, I have 3 questions for you. Which aspect of the Empress calls to you the most? The mother, the mommy, or the ma'am? And 2, what is your interpretation of the Empress from the Spirit Halloween deck? And 3, how does she compare to her counterparts? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for checking me out, and I hope to see you back again sometime. Bye-bye.